Welcome, dramatic pause, to another episode of The Breakdown. We got a conversation tonight. One of the things that's been going on in the province of Alberta is a lot of people are going, hey, I thought I had health care. Where did it go? And they're trying to figure out where their access to health care went. And there's a bunch of different things that have been bandied about by the current premier as well as the current government of Alberta. Long time fans of the show might remember when we posted a few video clips from a speaking engagement where Smith proposed the idea that what if we just contracted out all of the health provisions, the delivery of health to a bunch of different contractors and see how that went. Not saying that's relevant to what we're going to talk about tonight. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. That's why we're having the conversation that we're going to have tonight, because there's some things going on in the hamlet, the town. I'm not sure how big it is. I'm probably going to find out in a sec, of Airdrie in regards to healthcare. To make a little bit of sense of this, we're very excited to welcome to the show concerned citizen, concerned mom, advocate. Full disclosure, she's also the Airdrie East NDP Constituency Association president, but that's not why she's here tonight. There will be no NDP branding, and I'm pretty sure that she's not speaking in any official capacity for the party. She's shaking her head. No, very excited to welcome to the show, Sarah Zagoda. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for having me.
Perfect. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, and you've provided us with some screenshots of the presentation that you sat through that I'm probably going to reference as we go through our conversation. But before we get into it, how's Airdrie these days? You live in Airdrie. How's things?
I love Airdrie. It's beautiful and sunny and full of nice people. I work here, I live here, and raise my family here. It's home.
How long have you been living in Airdrie for?
Since 2015.
It's a little while. Were you there? I can't remember the year. Were you there for the Gatling gun hail?
No.
Oh, see, that was that. I just remember, I can't remember the year, but I remember driving through Airdrie for a couple of years, and it looked like somebody had just opened fire on that town because they got smoked with a massive, massive hailstorm. And also, that's my big memory of Airdrie. So, a couple of nice Dairy Queens, though. That's not a plug. It's just an observation. Um, how's healthcare in Airdrie? How's access to healthcare in Airdrie?
Well, um, it's lacking. Like, let's be honest. Airdrie is the fastest growing city in Alberta. That's a fact. Airdrie is going to be the third largest city in Alberta by, well, they originally said 2033, but it's looking like it's going to happen sooner. That's also a fact. We're going to be bigger than Red Deer. We're expanding so quickly. We have one urgent care, and I love everybody that works there and tries to make that work the best they can, but the facility is too small. The building apparently was never meant to be an urgent care, and it was converted. And then we have our doctor's offices. I could not get a family doctor in Airdrie, so my family and I, we drive to Calgary. If you have to see a doctor, you have to get there bright and early. Otherwise, their wait list, like their walk-in wait list, fills up really quickly, and you can't see anybody past 11 or noon. Like they're full. The urgent care, like I said, I don't know exactly how many beds they have. The staff work really hard, but it's a long wait list, right? And of course, when you go in, you get triaged, right? And they see people in priority that they need to be seen. But a lot of people still get transferred to Calgary, a lot, right? And yeah, as a growing city, and we're going to be the third largest, we need something new. That's just a fact.
I think it's important to highlight, like anecdotally, I'll share a little story about Airdrie Urgent Care as a Calgarian. Um, I really like Airdrie Urgent Care because it's faster than most of the hospitals in Calgary most of the time. And when I had my little bout with pneumonia coming up to a year ago, when I said, "Okay, fine, I'll go in somewhere," I was like, I'm not going to a hospital. But I will go to Airdrie. And I think it's important to highlight that a lot of Calgarians not only go to Airdrie of their, because they want to, they'd prefer to go to an urgent care than to go to a hospital. But secondary to that, there was quite a bit of media reporting about the fact that EMS was now transporting people to Airdrie Urgent Care and Cochrane Urgent Care outside of the city. So when we say, and I just, as you were talking there, I looked up the population of Airdrie because I wanted to get some context. I probably should have done that beforehand, but it's just been a day. 85,805 people living in the city of Airdrie with one urgent care,
Yeah.
catching the outflow of Calgary.
Yeah.
Um, that's for context, which I think is important. Cochrane has like a third of the population. I think it's just over 30,000 people is what I looked up. And they have one urgent care. Now, to be clear, the urgent care, while good for urgent care things, is limited in the kind of care that they can provide. So if somebody from Airdrie requires, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but if somebody from Airdrie requires surgical procedures, if somebody from Airdrie requires specialized obstetrical, like baby care or pregnant mom care, I probably shouldn't use the $5 words. But if somebody requires that sort of specialized care, um, that's not available in Airdrie.
No, no, all those patients get diverted to Calgary, mostly like the Peter Lougheed. We have a lot of highway babies. My best friend's delivered in the back of an ambulance on the side of Highway 2.
Which is suboptimal. I mean,
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
I'm a little
Um,
biased. I think paramedics are fantastic, but as a paramedic myself, I would much rather have a mom deliver in a hospital than in the back of the truck. Um,
yeah, so we have patients, people who need dialysis or any kind of anything like that, right? You have to go to Calgary, which people use the argument, oh, it's not far, right? But it is. It could take you 45 minutes to get to the Peter Lougheed. Um, there's traffic, there's construction, there's a whole bunch of things that can happen. Like you just never know. And not to mention, not everybody drives, right? You got somebody sick, there's not a lot of transport options. You have to rely on rides or friends. There are some like volunteer ride shares. I forget the name of it, but there's an organization that drives people from Airdrie to Calgary for dialysis and stuff like that, medical appointments and back. But, as a growing city, we need proper structure here. We need proper things here.
Given what you said about Airdrie being projected to be the third largest city in the province, off the top of my head, Medicine Hat has a hospital, Lethbridge has a hospital, Red Deer has a hospital, Grand Prairie arguably.
Leduc, Leduc has a hospital. Sherwood Park has a hospital. St. Albert has a hospital. Those are smaller communities than Airdrie, right outside of Edmonton, and they all have hospitals.
Okay, so I think it's safe to say, and I know it's been an election issue for a while. It was certainly something that was talked about in the last provincial election. When is Airdrie getting a proper hospital? And there's some debate of, well, maybe we'll do one in the north end of Calgary, maybe we'll do one in Airdrie. We don't know. It seems like, and this is the reason why we're having this conversation tonight, there's a surprise bonus third option, kind of, not really. And that's what we're here to talk about. So, the new urgent care that's being proposed. How did you hear about this idea? Let's start with that.
In September, they announced they were going to do renovations on the urgent care, an $8.5 million upgrade. Yay, amazing. We need that so bad. And then we were all excited about it, and then it was put on pause. And we were like, but why? And they said, because we're waiting on a proposal from a third party. And then the public outlashed, roar, no, we need this. the Alberta government backtracked, went ahead with the renovation, or like they're giving the green light for the renovations, which I don't believe have started yet. Um, so we've been waiting. What is this mystery third party thing? And then I got a pamphlet saying, here's the information session. Show up at 10 o'clock on Saturday, and it's called One Health. So I
Which
went.
is a familiar name in Airdrie with a crappy website. I gotta say, their website sucks. Sorry, One Health, but stock photos and no information are super cool. But they've been around in Airdrie for the better, I think it's better part of 3 decades. Uh, what is your familiarity with One Health in Airdrie?
Honestly, pretty limited. They're a medical clinic, and I have some friends who are members of their clinic, and they see their doctors, and everything was fine.
Okay,
That's,
so
that's my knowledge.
if I was to characterize it as a doctor's office, a primary care clinic, I'd I'd be safe to say that.
Yeah, just like a doctor's office, like a regular family doctor type operation, as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay. But apparently, this doctor's office comes with ambition
Yes.
because you got to, what was, so you get this pamphlet. Did this just come in the mail? Was it just delivered?
Oh, it was like sent to me from somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so you get the pamphlet, 10 o'clock in the morning. What was the experience?
Um, so I went to the 10 o'clock session on Saturday, and it's their public engagement session. Um, Apparently they had different sessions for different audiences. So they had a couple for their current patient load and one for media. And I was in the public or community stakeholders group, I believe,
Okay.
accidentally, but awesome. Cool. Um, so Dr. Julian Kane, forgive me if I'm not saying that right, and Doug Smith. And Doug Smith's role is he helps design healthcare delivery systems. So the story that we were told was that Julian, Doug Smith, and the mayor, Peter Brown, went to the healthcare minister and said, hey, we need something for Airdrie. You're not going to give us a hospital, obviously, or something, um, we have an idea for this plan. And their plan is to build a brand new urgent care center, and have a primary care center on top, which will have everything. Sounds it sounds amazing, right on paper. Like they say every time you go there, you're gonna have a primary health team. You're gonna have 4 professionals there with whatever you need. You're gonna have your doctor, you're gonna have like whatever you need. They're gonna have x-rays there, a blood lab, um, everything like that. It's gonna be built in a brand new neighborhood. And they said Qualico Homes was gonna build it, and then they were gonna rent the space. Um, yeah, and they said there was gonna be membership only. So you have to be a member of One Health to access the team of doctors and the specialists there. So I asked, well, do you need to be a membership to access urgent care? And they said no, so that's good. I don't know. There's so much. Like, where do you want me to go?
Okay. Well, let's start with this because the just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, what they're in effect proposing is a two-story building.
Yeah.
First story is an urgent care open to the public, similar to the urgent care in Airdrie that's open to the public. And the second story is a private-ish, because it's only open to members, health primary care clinic. Did they provide any numbers for how many people this primary care clinic would service?
Yeah. They said initially they can service 15,000 patients. Um, so 15,000 people would be able to access a doctor through them.
Now, is that including the current roster of One Health? Like, are they going to shutter up the old One Health office and move to the fancy office in the second floor, or is this an addition? Did they provide any clarification around that?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know. They did say that most of the doctors will not be bringing patients over because they're brand new,
Okay.
like residents. Yeah, like brand new doctors. So I mean that's great, right? If if we can get 15,000 more people access to a doctor, that would be great. But what about everybody else?
Well, yeah, like again, the current population is 85,000, so there's still 70,000 that, you know, aren't going to be serviced through this specific clinic, I'll say, and won't have access to the fancy blood work and everything else. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
they said that you could drop your family doctor and join up with them. Because that was a question from the audience. So yeah, like you can transfer your stuff over. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
so they did say, because I asked, I'm like, well, do you have to pay for a membership? And they said no. They said it's going to be public health care. And I said, okay, is this a nonprofit model? And no, it's not. He said private clinics aren't, right? It runs on like a,
Well, I mean, doctors got to make money. They got to pay their bills and everything. So
yeah,
there's probably, I would presume, an advantage of running multiple teams out of the same building because you're going to save on space and infrastructure and administration and. So there's probably some profit saving to be had there.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I guess the next question is, does this impact? So you said that the government had said, hey, we're going to do renovations. And then they said, oh, we're going to wait for this proposal. And then they said, hey, we're going to do the renovations. They're going to continue. The plan is, so this is going to be a thing. And then they're going to have the old one renovated.
yeah. So apparently we'll have two urgent cares. Yeah. Now the other things, some of the other things that I found out is this One Health urgent care won't be connected to Connect Care. So if you go there, they will not be able to access all your records. Um, which is kind of concerning, right? Because you can get everybody's history, but no, they'll have their own separate system. And so there was questions asked about that, and they will upload, if you go to them for service, they will upload certain things to Connect Care, but they will not be directly connected to Connect Care. So that kind of is a red flag for me because it's an urgent care, but it'll be a privately run urgent care. So it'll be like a separate system.
I have a whole bunch of questions right there. So I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. I could have sworn I heard in many press conferences Danielle Smith saying that with the disintegration of AHS, Alberta Health Services was still going to be responsible for providing acute care. Now, an urgent care, I mean, urgent and acute are probably two pretty interchangeable words found on different ends of the dictionary, but they both pretty much mean the same thing. But what you just said is that this facility, which is an urgent care, is not going to be run by Alberta Health Services. It's going to be a proprietary property of One Health.
Yeah, and they were very, very clear on their language. This will not have anything to do with AHS. They said Alberta Health. They said that this model will follow under the like Smith, like Smith and Lagrange's new plan about the four pillars, the four silos, dividing healthcare into four things. It'll fall under that, under primary care. Um,
I have
yeah,
questions.
I have questions too because they want to separate things so much, but this facility would essentially be more than one of those silos. So isn't that interesting, right?
So it's a primary care, urgent care, not connected to the existing healthcare system. And that's fun.
Yeah, it's confusing.
But I mean, I kind of alluded at the beginning to, Danielle Smith's proposed master plan a couple of years back when she was waving her arms in the air and talking about how we could have different providers over here. This appears to very much be a first step in that direction because she's providing acute urgent care services, hospital services for all intents and purposes, but it is not being provided by AHS, the acute care provider, even under her own current model. This is instead being provided by a private contractor, right?
Yeah. So that also raises other questions like, how are they going to get paid? So I
That was
asked
my
that,
next question.
right? Because like right now we have a pay per service model, right? You go see the family doctor, it's like I think they get paid like 30 or $45 depending on the complexity. I believe. I'm sorry. I'm not actually in the medical field at all. I'm just
Concerned
vested.
citizen. Yeah.
Um, so I asked, how are you guys going to get paid by this? And they said they are expecting a lump sum from the government every year to run this facility and then get bonuses based on their performance. And I said, okay. Now, they also said that Airdrie costs the Alberta government $200 million a year to run. Healthcare in Airdrie costs $200 million. That includes our current urgent care, our physicians, their doctor's offices, imaging, blood lab services. So that's all encompassing. Airdrie healthcare costs $200 million a month or a year, sorry. So I asked, how much is this facility going to cost to run a year? He could not give me that answer. He said,
Like it
sorry, we
wasn't
don't have that information. And I said, how could you not have this information? I had a follow-up call with Mr. Doug Smith yesterday morning. And he told me that they've been developing this plan since December, and they have hundreds of pages in their master plan. But he couldn't give me that. And I feel like that's a really basic thing that you need to know. Because in my mind, right, the government's going to be like, hey, we're not going to build you a hospital because we're spending $400 million a year on healthcare in Airdrie as it stands right now, right? So how much is this going to cost? And I figure it's going to cost a lot of money because how are you going to pay a primary care team of 4 professionals, each patient that comes in for their appointment? They said there's going to be no time limits on appointments. And they said there's going to be specialists there, whatever you need. They said that this is going to be a patient-driven facility. So for example, his words, if you would like a what's the word? The herb doctors.
naturopath.
Yes, if you would like a naturopath, we will bring in a naturopath. So so the current pay model is $30 to $45 per visit, but here you're going to have like this whole team of people and pay them an hourly wage. So I'm wondering, how is this going to work? I do not understand the funding model at all. That just does not seem logical to me. I don't get it. I'd like to see their actual paperwork, but that is not available to the public.
Well, this okay, so I want to back up for a sec because it seems to me, I mean, they were clear, this is a for-profit venture. And so we have a for-profit entity providing urgent care under this model. I just really want to say that a second time just to make sure that this is what was communicated to you. This is a
Yeah.
for-profit company that will be providing urgent care to Airdronians and a boatload of Calgarians probably because you open up a second urgent care and everybody's going to go, I bet the lines are shorter. This is a for-profit healthcare delivery of urgent care paid for by public dollars.
Yeah. And I'd like to add, like our Airdrie urgent care, our current one, it didn't come with all the bells and whistles. Like our Alberta Health Foundation had to fundraise to get equipment that we needed, like ultrasound machines and a whole bunch of other stuff. I actually I don't know the list, but that stuff came from fundraising. The government didn't give it to them. I asked One Health, how long is it going to take you to recoup your investment to build it? Like when will you start making profit? And he said, oh no, we're not putting any money into this. It is all going to be paid for by the government. Everything.
Okay, so I just need to clarify this again.
Yeah,
What they said at the engagement session is that they don't have to pay for any of the infrastructure. They don't have to pay for any of the equipment. The taxpayers are going to be footing the bill for all of it. So they are, in effect, providing only the people power for profit. Well, I guess if you don't have to buy all this stuff, that's where your profit margin comes from.
I guess so.
That's wild. But this isn't just a proposal. Like this is the other piece that I think is particularly important to highlight. I'm going to throw up one of the pictures, well, the opening slide from the presentation that you were shown. You were generous enough to provide us with some copies, some screen captures of it, and I can't help but notice that the very opening slide, there's two things that right away I go, wait, what? For a proposal, it already has the government of Alberta logo on it. And that seems to be a little bit more than a sales pitch. Like if I'm trying to sell Coke a new flavor and I come to do flavor testing or market testing and I say, "Oh, by the way, this is the new flavor of Coke." First of all, everybody knows how well new Coke went, but second of all, um, that seems to imply a little bit more than just a proposal. Did they provide any explanation for why there was government branding on this?
Well, they stated numerous times at the 10 a.m. session that they were volunteering their time to put together this proposal. Um, they told us that they flew to Alaska. Okay, I should backtrack on that really quickly. They're saying that they're basing this on a model that's currently in Alaska, okay, but tailored to Airdrie. And they said they were volunteering their time on this multiple times during the presentation. But then I read a Calgary Herald article the other day, and I found out that they were actually paid $85,000 from the health minister's office to write this proposal.
Okay, so just to be clear, I can already feel my FOIP trigger finger getting warmed up here. Just to be clear, the government of Alberta paid One Health to come up with a proposal for Airdrie, $85,000, taxpayers' money, to support the development of a proposal for a for-profit, taxpayer-funded healthcare delivery, acute healthcare. Like I don't have an issue with the second floor being for profit because that is what that is. But to incorporate that under the same umbrella for the urgent care and the acute care, that seems to me to be deeply, deeply problematic. But the government
Yeah.
is already in effect signed off on this.
No, well, I don't know. I don't know. So when I had my call with Doug Smith yesterday, I was asking questions, and he said that like they were told to make this proposal and then talk to the community after it's already been written. So at my session, actually, there was quite a few people upset because they did not consult with any of the local healthcare stakeholders, such as the the Airdrie Health Foundation, the Thumbs Up Foundation, um, Mom Stop the Harm, um, anybody. They weren't told not to talk to anybody and just develop this on their own and then do the health session. Um, which is kind of why wouldn't you want to talk to the community healthcare leaders to help develop this brand new plan, right? Yeah. Sorry, what was the rest of your question there?
I'm just taking it all in. I
Yeah.
mean, it seems to me, and I'm speculating, but it seems to me that if I'm just looking, and we'll put the link up for the Calgary Herald story so everybody knows that we're not just talking shit. But reading from the Calgary Herald story that you sent us as well, a statement from Alberta Health Administrator Anna LaGrange said the province is providing One Health with an $85,000 grant to develop a business case for its integrated primary care center and urgent care facility. So the I mean, it's in the Herald article. It is what it is. So I would imagine he said, when you put like an RFP out, typically like a request for proposal, I don't know, maybe for like masks or something if you're Adriana Lagrange. I'm just speculating and not in any way speaking to previous history. We have a back catalog where we did an episode on that. But if you put an RFP out, you say to people, hey, I would like to buy 1,000 widgets. Um, I would like to know what is it going to cost me to buy 1,000 widgets from your company? And you pick like 5 or 6 companies, or you put it out to public and you say, okay, guys, who's gonna come up with the widgets? Let us know your costs. Let us know how it's gonna work. But this was not that. This was a grant for $85,000 to One Health to put together a proposal in a silo where they did not consult with any of the other community healthcare stakeholders or people who have a vested interest in how healthcare is delivered for Adronians. Um, that's that's where we are.
Yeah, that sucks. That's I
Was
don't
there a reason? Like, did they say why they did this in a silo? Did they say why they didn't consult?
they were told not to. This is what my question was to Doug Smith and why I had a phone call with him yesterday. They were told not to. They said to develop the plan first and then do these community information sessions, and then they're going to take their questions back to the government.
Just to confirm, they were told not to by the government.
That's what he said. Yep.
Cool.
He
That
said
doesn't
they were
sound.
told to not because they didn't want to upset anybody. But by not consulting, people were very upset at the 10 a.m. session. Oh my goodness. Like,
I'm sorry. That's just we wouldn't want to consult with you and upset you.
right.
Like that almost seems as if the government has an awareness, and again, speculation, but it almost sounds like the government has an awareness that what they're doing would piss off a bunch of people. So let's put together the whole big flashy plan and then we'll deal with the pissed off people after.
I guess so. Like one amazing point that Michelle Bates from the Alberta Health Foundation or Airdrie Health Foundation brought up was that they potentially have donated land that could be used for a healthcare facility, right? If only they would have consulted and talked together and engaged with the community on their proposal. How much is the rent going to be on this facility? Rent is extremely expensive in Airdrie. I worked at a little restaurant during COVID. I know that their rent was $14,000 a month. How much rent is this going to be per month for a big facility like that, both floors? And who's paying for that? We are taxpayers, right? It's just, I don't know. I feel like we need something. We need something so bad. Like that is undisputable. But is this the right way? I don't
Well,
know.
it almost seems like uh, because Airdrie is so, I mean, again, to be clear, healthcare is a huge problem across the province, across the country. Nobody's minimizing that.
Yeah.
But like I said, by comparison, Cochrane has 34, well, let's go with 35,000 people. Airdrie has 85,000 people. You guys both have the same level of urgent slash emergent care access. You both have one urgent care. One of you has almost 3 times the population. Um, there's a big gap there. And especially if the city's going to continue to grow, I can't help but think like, okay, so that's going to mean more babies. That's going to mean more families. And there's still not going to be anywhere for like
Oh, they did say that they were going to have 2 overnight beds.
in the urgent care.
Yeah, in the urgent care, 2 overnight beds. So if somebody needs monitoring or IV or whatever, two beds. But that's not enough. They're still going to be transferring people to Calgary because currently, like at our other urgent care, like you can't keep people overnight, right? So we have seniors, in assisted living and stuff like that. If they need support, they need healthcare. Everybody's getting transferred right now to Calgary, and that's still going to continue. These 2 beds, that's not enough.
No, and I find myself wondering, like overnight. like how many nights? If somebody needs to be there for 3 nights, does that mean they've just chewed up one of those overnight beds, or is it one night and then we punch it to the city? Like there's there's a there's a lot of questions in regards to that. Um, what are
Yeah.
the sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. Um, and this is also like I'm looking at another one of the slides here. And I love, by the way, this government. I swear. I love how this is a PowerPoint that they presented in public at multiple different times, and it's still got the uh, classification protected A tag on it. That just it's public, but we want to keep it private. Makes me giggle. But I'm looking at this, and this is also, it appears going to be an EMS destination facility as well. So this is another place where like I find myself going, when somebody calls an ambulance, boy, they don't get to say, I'd like to go to X hospital. They get to go to the hospital that the system tells them to go to that's going to see them the quickest, that's the most appropriate for the care that they appear to need at that moment in time. That's how the system works now. And so you're going to be having the public system directing patients to Airdrie Urgent Care 2, um,
Yeah.
which is going to be a for-profit, private, like, what? That seems so fraught.
Yeah. They said there was going to be 3 EMS bays.
Well, I mean, that's more than Airdrie has currently,
Yeah, no, for sure. But
which isn't great. Did they talk at all? Like another one of the slides they talk about the building and the site. It's going to be located within Qualico's Vantage Rise development. And like again, I any time that there's branding on healthcare, I get kind of squirrely, just because the evidence and the data is all very clear. As soon as you start to run for-profit healthcare, especially for-profit public healthcare, the quality of services decreases. Period, and it costs more. So there's that. But like, did they say anything? This slide has complimentary services. I'm just like, are they going to put in an Arby's or what's a complimentary service?
I am unsure.
They didn't address that at all in the presentation.
No. Maybe they mean like imaging and blood lab on site. I'm not sure.
These look like they're separate buildings. Like that's why I'm kind of curious. Like, is that where you're going to stick the homeopaths for everybody that, I mean, my God, but um it's and again I'll put this slide up on the screen, but it's got a map of the parking lots, and there's all these buildings, and then there's an arrow to complementary services, which automatically makes me kind of go, okay, so who else is in on this deal? Because we're clearly not just in the planning stages. We're clearly not just talking about we're going to have this two-story building with primary care on the second floor and urgent care on the first floor. We're also going to have these other two complementary services that aren't defined above and beyond being complementary services.
Maybe they mean they did mention there was going to be a pharmacy in there also.
Okay,
So
so that'll be shoppers. Um, I'm gonna get sued. Um, So I guess I mean on the second to final slide, they say the next steps are they're going to incorporate engagement input into the plan. What was the kind of input what was the feedback from people at the session that you attended?
um so our I was at the first session and there was a lot of community leaders there and they had a lot of questions. Um the attitude was not very great. People were they had more questions than we could get answers to. Um our MLA was there and she was getting questions directed to her also that got a little spicy.
I would
Um
hope so, because I'm going to take a sec to point out Angela Pitt
yeah.
is the MLA. She's one of the MLAs who attended the non-colleges conference. She's one of the MLAs who went to the Lougheed event that was a fundraiser that was nothing but conspiracies. And again, I'm just going to say I am a little passionate about healthcare, but this is the same event that saw a former physician who's not licensed to practice call current physicians without any basis whatsoever pedophiles.
Yeah.
So this is the same MLA who's propping up. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but that doesn't air a certain, or that doesn't lend a certain air of legitimacy as far as I'm concerned. But please, I'm interrupting and ranting. Go on.
You're not interrupting. No, but she's endorsing this. She said this is a great idea and we should all be excited and happy about it. There was a lot of people there very upset. How come we can't have a meeting with you? How come we can't talk about this more? Why weren't we engaged in this? Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Yeah, it got spicy. I wish I could have recorded that, but my phone died.
So they're going to incorporate that feedback. Um, then they're going to complete their detailed proposal and submit it to Alberta Health. And it's important for the average layperson who's not super familiar with the way that healthcare is/was structured in the province of Alberta. Alberta Health is not Alberta Health Services. Alberta Health is the governmental branch that was originally put up to be a buffer, if you will, between government and Alberta Health Services. So this is, again, nothing to do with Alberta Health Services. This is them submitting to government. The government will then evaluate the proposal and make the decisions. Again, their branding is already kind of sort of on it. So there's that.
Yeah.
Um, did they talk about the phased implementation at all? I'm curious.
Yeah, they said that on opening, they're looking to have 15,000 people, 15,000 patients, and then expand to 30,000. They also said that Airdrie was going to be the test model for this. We're the testers. Whew. And if it works great and we need another one, they'll build another one. And
In
then,
Airdrie.
yeah. And then they're saying hopefully, all over Alberta, maybe all over Canada, if this works out really good. So we'll
Okay.
see.
I'm just taking that in for a second because
Oh,
you're
one
not
more.
supposed to have dead air in these things, but I'm just like, wait. So they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're saying in a public engagement session, hey, you know what? This is private acute care. We're gonna give it a try, and if it works, then we're gonna roll it out across the province.
That's their hope. They seemed very optimistic about that. Yeah.
That's stunning.
Yeah. Um, Another thing I want to mention real quick is because this is going to be a privately run urgent care, are they going to have the same standards and procedures as every other urgent care? I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, one of their other slides, they talked about how they were going to have different addiction services available and midwifery. And I have quite okay, you're going to have midwifery, but you can't deliver the babies. Cool. That'll be not in any way dissonant. But um, I think that raises like this is an entirely new frontier for all intents and purposes because even the Catholic healthcare system that exists in the province is nonprofit. This is a new beast entirely, and I think it's really important to, as much as I'm told some people say that life isn't fair. This seems to, when it comes to healthcare, this seems to definitely be highlighting the fact that, yeah, you know what? If you're one of the lucky 15,000, then you get access to all of these wonderful services. But
Yeah.
if you're not one of the lucky 15,000, then you get to go downstairs to the urgent care that we still make money off of.
Yeah. And they're saying that it's free. It doesn't cost anything to have a membership, but for how long? You see all these clinics popping up now in Alberta that have a membership fee, and they're only getting dealt with when the feds threaten the federal healthcare transfer. But for every one that shuts down, two more are popping up. So how long until there's a fee on this? They're saying no, right? But I'm doubtful. I'm skeptical, and I have every right to be.
Oh, for sure. As a concerned citizen, as a parent, and this feels like a massive moving of the goalposts in a lot of ways because, one of the, again, I know it has been an election issue in the last couple of elections, the healthcare situation in Airdrie, and I really find myself wondering how are taxpayers supposed to react? Obviously, especially taxpayers in Airdrie, but if this is being funded by government money, this is the first instance of acute care being that I'm aware of at least, but acute care being provided using taxpayers' money for a for-profit venture. This is my 6-year-old has abdominal pain. I looked it up on WebMD. I'm afraid she might have appendicitis. I'll take her to the urgent care, and somebody's making a profit off of that.
Yeah.
I am this episode has the most dead air of any episode I think that we've done in recent history, mostly because I'm just so stunned. Is there any sort of like they've had these engagement sessions? If I'm reading their schedule, their next steps correctly, um, this is it. This is the ball game. They're now going to take it back to Adriana LaGrange, who paid the $85,000 for them to develop this plan and hopefully get approval. I'm air quoting the hell out of that for our audio audience. Um, and then they'll just go ahead. Like this 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 there doesn't seem to be any mechanism built into their next steps to say, hey, maybe for profit urgent care, is it a great thing?
Yeah, it says complete detailed proposal and submit to Alberta Health government to evaluate and make decisions.
Did they
So
have a timeline? That's the other big question. Like, and here's I recognize you do have a bit of a partisan hat that you wear from time to time, but is this something that they've said, oh, we're totally going to get this done before the next election, or is this something that they've said it's going to take 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 15 years, who knows? Grand
they
Prairie Hospital,
they said 30 months. They said if approved, it would be open in 30 months.
2.5 years. So this would be before the next election. Oh boy. Have you spoken to anyone else? Like, I'm curious if you've spoke or if you've heard from or spoken to anyone else. I know that there's, you talked about community stakeholders. This to me seems like the kind of issue that should be a lightning rod for healthcare advocates. Have you heard from anybody else? Have you heard from any other organizations in regards to yay or nay?
Everybody left that session with way more questions than when we walked in. The community stakeholders that were there while I was there were very concerned and have a lot of questions and should have been involved, period, into any of this. Um, I've requested a couple more meetings with some people, and I have questions for them. One of them is being our mayor too. So I'm gonna ask him.
Was there, just to make sure that I'm not the only one coming to the conclusion that this is for-profit urgent care. Did that question come up in the engagement session? Did people say, wait, so this is going to be for-profit urgent care?
Yeah, I did. I asked him. I said, when they were talking about everything, it's in one of the audio clips, I believe. But I asked, is this a nonprofit model? And he was like, no. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
anything else you want to say?
well, so what I wanted to find out was like, how much does it cost to run a hospital in Leduc or Sherwood Park? The hospital in Leduc, they do surgeries there, right? Like they're a fully equipped. How much does it cost to run that hospital a year? And, you know, if it's something close to what this is going to cost, why not just give us a hospital? That's because public funded things should be nonprofit, in my opinion, right? And I think we just get a better bang for our buck. I really do not understand how they're going to pay everybody and do all the things that they're saying they're going to do, and this costs less than public health care that we currently have. It does not compute in my brain. I don't understand.
Well,
So
I mean, the evidence in the studies that have been done on public versus private healthcare delivery and administration, as much as there's this, oh, AHS has so many managers, and there's plenty to criticize. There's always something to criticize in any sort of big system, but the reality is that AHS was running some of the leanest management in comparative to other healthcare systems. That was just a really good talking point that made people pissed off. Whether it had any truth to it seemed to be irrelevant. But the bottom line is that if you want to buy 100 widgets and you have to incorporate profit, you're either going to get fewer widgets or fewer lower quality widgets. That's there's nowhere else to go. There's no efficiencies to be found. That's just the reality. So if this is a privately run for profit facility, that's that's not even connected to the existing information network. Like that's I have so many questions about that in and of itself as well, because
yeah,
there's so much about a patient's medical history that gets to be pertinent when you're trying to figure out what's going on with them today. That's did they say why they weren't going to be connected to Connect Care?
I'm guessing because they're a private entity, they won't be incorporated with AHS. Yeah, they stated many times this is not AHS. They're not going to. Yeah, so that's really concerning. Like, how can you find somebody's whole medical history? What if they're just like ER hopping and you can't see everything that they've tried or anything, what they're allergic to? Like, come on, this is basic stuff. And they spent so much money on Connect Care, and I think it's been great. I can access all my records everywhere, and they're not going to have access to anything when you go there for an emergency. That's kind of shocking.
Yeah,
They're going
there's
to
a
have
whole
their own system. I looked it up on the internet. They have like their own portal and everything. So they'll have their own separate little system. But say you, yeah, I don't know how this was going to work. Like, say you're a patient of One Health and you have specialists, right? And a lot of specialists you have to travel for. How is all that going to be communicated? Like, just, I guess, by faxes? I don't
I
know.
assume, I assume this is something that you're going to be following.
Yeah, I'm invested. I want to know what's going on. I will let you know if I hear anything more.
Well, thank you. And I mean, for what it's worth, I would humbly suggest that certainly anyone in Airdrie would do well to write their various elected officials, certainly their MLA, and certainly their mayor. I'm told it's just rumor probably, but I'm told that if you send your letter to the MLA in question and you wrap it in tinfoil, it's extra appreciated. Uh, but I would certainly encourage everybody in Airdrie to write your MLA. But I would also make the argument for our audience that if you live in Calgary and you've ever made the trip up to Airdrie to try to access healthcare, that would be in your interest to write to those people too. Um, because the other question that I have is if they're going to keep uh, the current urgent care, and I don't know if they addressed this, but if I imagine they probably didn't. But if they're going to keep the current urgent care under the AHS umbrella, is there going to be preferential delivery of equipment and services? So if you're the AHS urgent care and somebody's getting an MRI because they don't have MRIs up there, but there's going to be one of these facilities we're going to give an MRI to. How does it get determined, especially if the infrastructure is being provided by Alberta Health? How is it determined who gets that MRI? How is it determined who gets the the flashy new stuff, and what assurances are there that it's not going to go to the for-profit entity as opposed to the publicly funded, publicly delivered, publicly not for-profit entity?
At the session after mine that one of my friends attended, they said they were going to have a CT machine. So, no, I feel like anything new or fancy will go to this new one. Yeah.
I'd love to know what that process like I said, I can feel my trigger finger getting warm, and it's definitely going to get fired up after this. Sarah, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Is there anything else you want people to hear? Is there anything else you want people to know? Is there any questions that I didn't ask because I was too busy being stunned by all of this?
Um, no, just a fun fact, 25% of the patients that go to Airdrie urgent care are from Calgary. And a lot of Airdronians, we go to Didsbury. We go to Didsbury or Olds, we'll just drive further down. So it's got like this, trickle down effect. But yeah, some stuff we absolutely have to go to Calgary for. So it's just kind of funny how it's all people just go wherever they can get in, right? And yeah,
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time tonight, Sarah.
thank you.
And that's it for another episode of The Breakdown. As always, if you appreciate the kind of content that we're trying to produce here, we would love nothing more than if you thought about signing up to be one of our Patreon sponsors at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab, where for just the price of a fancy cup of coffee a month, you can help us continue to produce this kind of content. Whether you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, in which case maybe leave a review and a rating, or whether you're watching it on one of our streaming platforms, we want to say a big thank you to everybody who is part of the Breakdown's audience. And as always, take care of each other and keep the conversation going.